Hello and welcome to episode 11 of the Championship Rounds podcast. I'm Tockers, joined by Dan and Taj. In a week that's got some under the radar fights, a bit of a drop off from last weekend, it's fair to say, but there's still some interesting matchups this weekend. Starting off on Saturday, I think we should. Bakram Murtazaliev defends his IBF super welterweight title against Zhu in Florida. In a fight that there's a clear favourite in, but I think, me personally, I think that people are slightly overlooking Murtazaliev here. But yeah, what's your opinion on this fight, Dan?
I think this is a good fight. I mean, it's clearly the best fight of the weekend. We did start off with the best fight of the weekend. It's a good, interesting clash of styles. I'm really interested to see how Tim looks after his last fight.
Dealing with another tall, lanky fighter, but this one throws and averages probably like 90 punches around and just doesn't stop coming forward.
That for me is why I think this fight's interesting, because Murtazaliev technically isn't very good, but he's a physical specimen that throws sort of 100 punches around and is huge for 154. Like that's what makes it interesting to me.
He won't have to go looking for Tim Tszyu like he did against Jack Colgate, who was boxing most of that fight. Because I mean, I'm interested in who's going to be the one on the back foot because they both come forward.
Might cancel itself out and they might not move anywhere. I'd like to see that.
I'd like to see that as well.
I'd also like to see that.
Just not move. I feel like they probably won't move too much. Because Tim's like a really good counter puncher. And obviously Murtazaliev is coming to try to land flurries on you. So Tim has to be close to land those counters. He's so good at doing.
I think Zhu's bodywork will be key here. Like, I was watching the Harrison fight back, and like it's different styles, and Harrison's a different fighter to Murtazaliev. But one thing about Murtazaliev is he's got an extremely long sort of body that you can aim at, and I think that would be the key for Zhu winning this fight. Just hammer the body early on,
I mean,
and it will open up.
Any problems getting on the inside? I don't think he'll have any problems getting on the inside, to be honest. And I guess on the inside you're supposed to favour the smaller fighter with the smaller arms. So that's not always the case. Look at Fundora. He has massive arms. He's better on the inside than he is at range.
Yep.
But I mean, at least he's coming off like fighting someone who's massive for the weight. Cause
yeah, that gets you ready.
Fundora makes Murtazaliev look small for 154. That's how big he is. I mean, he couldn't quite do all he wanted to do against Fundora because of the cut. But that's a good experience for this fight.
Yep. That Fundora fight, like I don't think I've seen somebody lose pretty clearly, but have their stock go up like that. If that makes any sense, like you can have sort of disputed decisions, sort of like on the weekend with Bivol against Beterbiev. Yeah, Bivol lost, but that's disputed, that decision. Like, I don't think anyone really disagreed that Fundora won that fight, if I'm being honest. But
well, if they do, they shouldn't, because I mean, Fundora clearly won the fight.
Yeah.
Well, usually happens when someone goes through some adversity like that and fights back and carries on.
Yeah.
Goes the distance in a competitive fight. Like
Yeah,
really,
that's fair.
the only adversity he'd really been in was when he got dropped, and
By
he came
Ghost,
back from
right?
that. But
Yeah.
he came back from that, but that's completely different. I mean, he lost a lot of blood in that fight.
Couldn't see, couldn't.
It did look
Yeah,
like he was on
'cause-
his way to a stoppage in those first couple rounds. But
Yeah, like I think without without that cut, he stops Fandora probably in about 5 or 6. If I'm being honest.
I predicted Tim to stop him. Well, that didn't happen, but I think it would have happened. I mean, he didn't really have much trouble landing on Fundora for the first round and almost 2 rounds because he got cut right at the end of the second round.
He shattered his nose, didn't he?
Yeah. Yeah, he shattered Fundora's nose. I think that's like around 5 or 6. I mean, in the Fundora's defense, he fought half of that fight with broken nose and losing a lot of blood himself.
there was just so much blood, like everywhere.
It was just a mad fight to watch. It was a mad fight to watch, man.
You know, I don't
Yeah.
think this won't be that brutal, but it'll still be very entertaining.
I think it'll be an entertaining fight that Zoo's winning, clearly. Because you get that. Sometimes you just get guys that are tough, will throw back, but they're losing. Sort of thing. And I think it'll be sort of like that.
Yeah, I don't really see Tim getting like overwhelmed by the punches because Tim didn't really seem to be super overwhelmed with Fundora. Like Fundora, well, I guess Fundora wasn't usually doing his style of boxing. He was kind of
Yeah.
forced not to.
And Murtazaliev hits a lot harder than Fandora. And he's stronger. He's physically stronger than Fandora as well.
Yeah, because Tim had lots of trouble with Fundora's jab. I mean, that's mostly what he threw in the second half of that fight, which is jabs, and they couldn't miss because Tim couldn't see, and they were snapping his head back. Blood was flying everywhere. Didn't look very good.
It's understandable. This fight, I think, if Zoo wins, it puts him in a very good position in the sort of division. Like, God knows what's going on with Crawford. He's probably going to get upgraded to the WBO champion when Fundora fights Spence, because Spence isn't ranked by the WBO. So you'll get that situation there. And then Zoo's probably going to have a belt. So, like, I don't know, there's lots of options for him. There's like Virgil Ortiz, there's the Majmov Boachuk winner, Lubin, Ramos. There's loads of guys there that Zoo can fight and be in good fights with.
It's a great division.
Like, where do you think he goes?
He probably wants to get his get back against Fundora the most. But I'm not sure will be the most realistic.
I think the most realistic is probably Lubin, if I'm being honest.
It's a good
But any PBC fight is the most realistic for Tim to. But I mean, if he really wants to challenge himself, then I guess fight Terence Crawford.
But does Crawford want to fight him? That's the thing.
I don't know. Only he can answer that. Well, he seems to want to fight Fundora.
Well, that's arguable because he's agreed to let Fondora fight Spence, hasn't he? Or have an interim fight.
You know, maybe he is just doing Spence a favor because he felt bad about how badly he beat him up.
Maybe. But Crawford is 37 now. Like,
Look, I mean, maybe he just wants a little bit of time off. He's like, yeah, I'll just take some time off, let Spence fight Fundora, and then I'll fight the winner.
maybe. I hope that happens. But even Charlo's coming back, isn't he? On the Gervonta Davis card, that's rumored. So that's maybe an option for Zerdline. Like that fight was done and sealed a couple of years ago. However long ago it was. Obviously, it fell apart, and Charlo went and shelled up against Canelo and took a payday. But there's loads of options for him, man, and it's a really good division. There's Boachok, Ortiz, Madrimov. Like you can probably name about 10 or 15 opponents for Tim Tszyu after this fight, assuming he wins, obviously. And you think, yeah, they're really good fights. Is that sort of division right now? I'm assuming we're all going to pick Tim Tszyu to win this fight, probably by stoppage, yeah.
Late for me, probably like 8 or 9, like 8 to 10.
Yeah,
around there.
Like he just throws and lands. His punches are so much more compactful compared to Murtazaliev's.
I think he's got quicker hands as well, a lot quicker hands, and the body work will be key as well. And yeah,
Well, Murtazaliev's punches, they can be a bit wide. I mean, Tim, he is very good at throwing straight punches. They're just gonna land quicker. They're gonna look better. Well, they're gonna be obvious, clear scoring punches.
yep.
Because he basically fights like his dad. Pretty much.
Pretty much, yeah.
And
But yeah,
if he attacks the body like we think he's going to do, then that should break Murtazaliev down.
I think that's the mistake Kolke made, because Kolke was having so much success in that fight, but it was all upstairs. And like Murtazaliev just walked through it, and then eventually Kolke was just done. He couldn't keep up with the pace, and then just fell apart late on.
Yeah, because does Murtazaliev have like the finish he has if he's got hit to the body the whole fight? I don't think so.
I agree.
Probably could have held on. One decision.
Yep. Yep. But yeah, it's an interesting fight that I think there's a clear favourite in, but like a lot of people are writing off Murtazaliev like completely, and I don't think that's right. But I do think Tim Tszyu wins.
Yeah, I think Murtazaliev, he'll put up a very good effort. I think this fight's going to be really good.
Yep.
Possibly be list.
No, I think it will be list. Just put it in right now. Put it in right now. Just stick the names in right now.
I'll jinx it.
That's how confident I am.
Can't jinx it.
Now, on the card, there's a couple of fights that are not necessarily interesting, but interesting names and people to keep an eye on. Cesar Mateo Tapia is an Australian Mexican. If those exist, he's probably the only Australian Mexican to ever exist. He's fighting Endri Savandria. I think that's how you pronounce it. Now, I actually watched Savandria fight. I've said 2 different pronunciations in about a 30-second period there, but I watched him beat up Isaac Hardman. I actually bet him in playing that fight because the no limit cards in Australia have him played betting on Bet365.
I also watched him beat up Isaac Hardman.
And in the first 2 rounds, I was like, this kid's going to win this fight. and I just put a load of money on him, like 3-1 or something, like during the second round. And then he just kept beating him up and beating him up and beating him up, and eventually got a TKO in the 8th round. Yeah, that Isaac Hardman's not very good though.
See, he's not the best, but one thing Isaac Hardman can do is punch.
Yeah. And he walked through that. I think this Mateo Tapia's had a weird career, you know, because he was fighting on MTK shows in like Dubai and that like years ago. I remember. I think he was with MTK for a while. What fight was it? Yeah, he fought in 2019 in the Dubai Emirates Golf Club, and like he had MTK all over his shorts, and like that was the same card with David Oliver Joyce on it and people like that, you know. He fought on a Pro Box card last year. Like, he's been all over the place, and like, he's found a home with no limit, I think, now. But yeah, I don't know how high his ceiling is. He's fighting against Kyber Gonzalez in April. That was on that was on the Champalone against Zinad undercard, and I wasn't that impressed with him.
Well, actually, it was on the Nikias who didn't look creative on the card.
Yeah, I'm not counting that as a main event, but yeah, fair enough.
Oh well, obviously we watched that card because it's on at a good time. Obviously, his most notable win is when he stopped Reynald Quinlan in the rematch, didn't he? That was on the Tszyu Hogan card, I think.
Yeah, he's okay. Like, he's not anything brilliant. Like, he's just okay. You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, I haven't watched loads of fights, but I've watched a good few fights of both fighters, and this is not an easy fight. Like, anything can happen in this fight.
Yeah.
I don't think it's going to go the distance, but because they both can punch. But who knows?
Who knows? And at the end of the day, even if they're not the best, middleweight needs someone to just come through and like at least have a bit of intrigue. You know what I mean? Like, if Mateo Tapia can put a decent little run together, there's a little bit of interest behind them. Like, I think the division needs that.
They need something.
Yeah. Anyway, also on this card, Jonas Tellez is an exceptional talent at super welterweight against Johan Gonzalez. This is a very, very good step up. Obviously, Gonzalez lost to Kurbanov, Jesus Ramos. God, someone else. I can't remember who else.
Navarro.
But yeah. It's a very good step up for Tellez, who's an exceptional fighter. Banged out Sergio Garcia on the Spence Crawford on the card, and has had a couple of shaky performances since then. But I wouldn't read too much into that because his manager is actually being investigated for match fixing for his fights. So whatever you do, don't bet on this fight. But Tellez is definitely someone to keep a look out for, I think, because he's a very good fighter, Cuban kid, only 24. He's put a nice little run together. And then Danny Perro as well as a nice heavyweight prospect on this card, but there's not much else. Gary Antonio Russell's back, and then quite a few local kids. There's not really much else. Germany on Saturday evening. Now let's move on to this. William Scull against Vladimir Shishkin for the vacant IBF super middleweight title. Now, I just don't care. If I'm being honest, I don't know about you two. I just don't care.
It's not that good of a title fight, to be honest.
Like,
That's because the division isn't very good.
It's kind of pitiful.
Skull's been sat on that mandatory position for years as well. Like, Shishkin's got the, like, I just don't know.
Well, I mean,
Like-
I've never been really impressed with Vladimir Shishkin whenever I've watched him. I mean, maybe his best performance is against my guy because he actually came forward and didn't box that fight. But
But
still,
again, it's my guy.
Shishkin belongs on RTC undercards in, like, the third hour of a 9-hour broadcast. That's where he belongs. He doesn't belong in world title fights. He's not very good. And neither is William Skull, really, because not many people saw this fight, but his fight on the Canelo undercard, I think it was the Munguia, one of his 8-rounders. It was either the Munguia fight or I think it was the Munguia fight. He had an 8-rounder on the undercard. and he got dropped in that fight, but it didn't get called. And like, it wasn't broadcast, but there was like one of his coaches was live streaming the fight from ringside on like just a phone. And Skull definitely got dropped in that fight, and like not like he just didn't get called. But yeah, man, I'm not too enthralled by this fight. I don't know about you. Like, it's just not good. It's really not good.
Well, I think Skull is a better fighter. But he just can't punch, which is fine. But sometimes it doesn't make for good watches.
It's probably going to be a horrible watch.
Yeah. And with the IBF, vacant titles mean that you have to have a mandatory defense pretty much straight away. And the number 3 right now is Christian and Billy. So, like, I'd favour him over both of these quite heavily.
Yeah, see, this is what annoys me about the IBF. That like, they're just too strict sometimes. And they'll strip like an undisputed guy, and then they'll just have 2 not great fighters fighting because their rankings aren't that good a lot of the time. And then we'll just have some poor champion.
And we'll get onto that. We'll get onto that later. We'll get onto that in a second after we preview Adam Azim against O'Hara Davis. I actually like this fight for Azim. I don't know about you two.
He needs to have something to have him show out because he hasn't really impressed anybody in like a couple fights.
I think he's a good fighter, but like they've put, he's been this boxer poster boy, and he's not there yet. Like, he's a good fighter, good prospect, but he's 21. Like, too much too soon, man. And the way Boxer have moved him has been so bad. With the whole Dalton Smith thing, the whole Harlem Eubank thing. They were going to fight a Masito guest star. That fell apart literally 2 hours before the press conference. They had a venue booked and everything. Like, it's just a mess where they've moved him. But like, this fight I actually like for him. I think it's a good step-up fight for someone of his age.
It's a good step up. And it should answer a lot. Especially should answer if he can take a punch on it, because R. Davis can punch.
Yep.
Well, I mean, I just don't really like the matchmaking that they've had for Adam Azim. I mean, I'm not really too surprised because it's Ben Shalom, and he's absolutely useless.
He's a dreadful. He's pretty bad.
Well, I get it, like he's pretty new compared to the other promoters, but it just looks like it just seems like he had no idea boxing existed, and he thought, yeah, let me get into boxing.
The thing that I don't get with it is like how you can do that and not have like how you can get like a £30 million Sky deal with that when he's making literal mistakes that small hall promoters don't make. Right, but anyway, that's a story for another day.
I guess they needed someone. They just thought, yeah, let's just pick up anyone after Eddie left and went to the zone.
Yeah, you had Mick Hennessy, you had the Sauerlands, Steve Goodwin, Conlons, like Lee Eaton was putting on really good shows then when he was promoting. Like, you had guys.
Everybody thought, oh, yeah, this is some new young guy. He's going to be with us for a while. We can build him up to be a great promoter. Have a long relationship like they had with Eddie. I mean, it's kind of the same thing what they did. I mean, Eddie was really young when he went to Sky. He's still pretty young now. And they thought
but like
the same thing. But Eddie actually knew boxing. I mean,
he had boxing people around him as well.
Dad's company. I mean, Queensberry was Dad's company.
Boxing people around him, contacts in the industry, like, but
yeah, and Eddie had like sales thing before because he did the snooker stuff before he got into boxing, and he's actually good at his job, unlike Ben Shalom.
Yeah, but I actually like a fight on this undercard. You know, I take it. Actually, let's predict Azim. I've skipped ahead there. Predictions for Azim. I think Azim's going to win a sort of. I don't know if it's a 10 round. I think it's a 10 rounder, but like a 98-92.
Yeah, I think he's gonna win a decision. Could have a shaky moment. Could not. I mean, I'm not too sure what.
I think it's gonna be an unentertaining, boring decision.
Yeah, Azim. I was at one of Azim's fights last year, and like really early on. I think it was January last year, maybe February. And he fought. Who did he fight? Because it was a really boring fight, and I just ended up leaving halfway through. The Santos Reyes fight. I ended up leaving that fight. It was February 2023, and I ended up leaving after like the 5th round. I just knew exactly what was going to happen. Like, I just couldn't be bothered to watch it.
I mean, he didn't really have the best 2023, to be honest. He didn't really look that good. I
He
mean,
didn't look good in any of those three fights.
because at least he stopped Pejon. But the other two, I mean, he didn't look that good. He didn't really look that good against Pejon, but at least he stopped him.
Yeah,
That
Banian.
can that
was
can
his body.
mask. A stoppage can always mask like a poor performance.
And the
Yeah.
anticlimactic thing with the Poulsen fight with his shoulder in his last fight.
Yeah, it was brilliant. But anyway, chief support on this fight, Anthony Yard is doing Anthony Yard things, fighting bin men from Eastern Europe in a pointless fight whilst Tunde screams lines in the camp and that he's going to knock out everyone. And then nothing comes of it, and 6 months later, you're still getting a bin man until they put him in with a world level killer.
Is he actually like co-main event on this card with that fight?
Yeah, it's kind of, yeah, they co-main evented it. Yeah.
That's pretty
Jesus
disgusting.
Christ.
Yeah.
That's
Like,
mostly
this
it.
fight should be on the non-televised.
It should be on YouTube.
It
Yeah.
on
was
YouTube.
literally
That's where it should be.
TBA up until a couple days ago.
Like when I
Yeah.
did the schedule on Monday, he was fighting TBA. That's
Yeah,
how you
he
know
was.
this isn't a good opponent.
And like, you get TBAs on BoxRec that are they've sort of got an opponent in, they've had an opponent for a couple of days, and they just haven't put it on. No, this was the legitimate. They didn't have an opponent until Tuesday. Like, they legitimately didn't know who they were fighting until Tuesday. So
And they're
typical
fighting
Anthony Yard.
Ralph's the Train Vilcons.
Yeah, so he left Frank Warren to join Boxer to fight on the undercard of Adam Azim against
On a one fight deal.
a random journeyman. What is he doing? What is he
On
doing?
a one fight deal. He's broken a contract for a one fight deal.
Against a Latvian.
But this is one point I want to make. People were so critical of Frank Warren's matchmaking of him throughout his entire career. Like, but in reality, and people knew this at the time, in reality, it wasn't Warren. And now you're seeing it because they could have easily look at the light heavyweights fighting on this card. Lewis Edmondson against Dan Aziz for the vacant British. You're not telling me that Yard couldn't have fought Aziz on this card.
Look, I mean, I knew Yard wasn't gonna fight loads of great opponents when he didn't want to fight Frank Buglioni back in 2017.
Yep. And that wasn't Frank didn't want to make that fight. Frank wanted that fight. It was Tunde.
Yeah, because and the other Frank wanted it as well.
Frank
Because he was
Smith.
no, Frank Buglioni himself.
Oh, yeah. That was very stupid of me. Sorry.
He'd been calling him. He was calling him out all the time. I mean, there was just nothing from Yard and Tunde.
Yep.
I mean, I don't even think it's Yard, to be honest. I think he'd want to fight these guys. I think it's mostly Tunde.
Tunde's an idiot, and
I don't think it can be him because even in his toughest
because-
fights, you can see he's actually like a pretty decent fighter.
Yeah, imagine how much better he could be if he actually had a competent
development.
trainer in his corner.
Like a good
Like,
trainer, any real development fights.
he got into a world title fight. And the literal only tactical advice he'd received in his entire career was empty the tank and lines in the camp.
That was actually the fact that I was like recorded and people don't like cook Tunde still for that to
Well,
empty the tank on Sergey Kovalev. That's
you
insane.
don't think empty the tank and the lions in the camp can beat Sergey Kovalev, a former pound for pound #2?
Yeah, it's disgusting. It
But
doesn't
yeah,
matter. Like empty the tank is crazy, especially with how he's big Yard is. That's not going to go well. He was already tired by that point too, so he really did empty the tank and got knocked out really off exhaustion.
Yeah, he got his fight knocked out by a jab. Well done, Tunde. Brilliant job.
Embarrassing.
but yeah, not ideal. Dan Aziz is fight. I mentioned it. Dan Aziz, Lewis Edmondson. This is a really good fight, for the British title. It's a genuine 50-50 in my opinion.
Yeah, look, Aziz's last performance
He lost that fight to Sepp.
is
Definitely.
really not good. I mean, Aziz might lose his fight. I mean, I'm at the moment, I've predicted him to lose on the Moxie News app. I just did my predictions earlier, but I haven't like fully
Committed
locked
to
that in. 'Cause
I'm
that,
pretty strong with Edmondson here.
look, performance against Sepp, really concerning.
He lost that fight.
I thought
Yeah,
He
'cause
definitely lost that fight.
what are you gonna do at this level of the division? Because I don't think he's still ranked top 10. I took him out the top 10. What are you gonna do if you can't even beat Sepp?
He hasn't won like a real fight since the Thomas Farr fight in Paris. That was actually, by the way, the night that Tim Tszyu beat Tony Harrison. He hasn't won a real because he beat Khalid Gradia on points, who was a 10-11-4 journeyman on a random OPI card in Italy. I don't count that as a real fight for someone at his level, a reigning British Commonwealth and European champion. That's not a real fight. Lost to Buatsi and then got a gift draw against Sepp. He hasn't won a fight in like 18 months.
Like in his defense, I mean he was on a pretty decent run. I mean he beat Jose Byrne, Reese Cartwright, Shakan Beers, and then 2022 Rocky Fielding, any Rocky Fielding, but especially 2022.
Rocky's living a good life in Dubai, man.
Shout out to him.
He got that money in balance.
He blocked me on Twitter because I told him he was never a real champion.
Right, he got that money and he bounced, man. Fucking fair play to him, man. Like at least he didn't make us stay up till for an extra like 9 rounds against Canelo. At least he quit with a smile on his face. Like, yeah, but yeah, Aziz was on a good run. I agree. But then ran into a Buatsi, got just outboxed, but a more skilled, more seasoned, better fighter in that fight. Like,
Because who did Edmondson beat in his last fight? Wasn't it? What's his face? McIntyre.
I believe so.
I mean, that was on the McCaskill Price on the card, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, he beat McIntyre on points. He hasn't been past 8 rounds. That's the concerning thing for Edmondson.
He also hasn't really fought anyone that good.
Yeah, but like, there's a lot of eye tests with him, and I really rate him on the eye test. Like, and I just think timing's everything. Like, he's 28, he's in his prime, and Dan Aziz is old, man. He's like 35 now, on the way down. Like, it's just timing's everything in this game, and I think this is the perfect time for him to win this fight.
Yeah, also, I mean, Dan Aziz is not a big light heavyweight at all.
Yeah.
Look, if he can go the 12 rounds I think he'll win.
Yep.
But I mean, I don't think it'll be easy because I mean, Dan is easy. I mean, he always does come and try to fight.
He tries, but like I just can't get that last fight out of my head for him. He looked completely shot in that fight. Completely.
Yeah, like I'm going against him, but if he wins, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
I think he's the favorite in the fight, obviously, and I imagine most people will be picking him to win. But that last fight is too much of a concern for me.
I
I
agree.
can only, I mean, I can only base off what you've done recently in the last couple of years. He's lost to Boazzi and got a gift draw against Seb.
He looked finished, man. And at some point, fighters of that age just fit like they're just finished after a certain point, and I think that might just apply to Dan Aziz.
Yeah, because I'm not gonna lie, I didn't even know he was that old. 35. I did
He's
not know he was
35.
that old.
Yeah, he's 35. Like people don't realize like how old he actually is. Like, but anyway, um, also on this card, Mikey McKinson's fighting for an IBO title, fight that no one's really interested in. Jamie TKV against Franklin Ignatius, heavyweight fight. Over 10 rounds. Like, they're both really, really bad, so it might be good because it's heavyweight. Like, it's an evenly matched pub brawl, that fight. And then Sam Hickey, who was a very, very good amateur, was making his pro debut from up here in Dundee. He's from Dundee, the kid. He actually knocked out Lewis Richardson in the Commonwealth Games, who went on to win a bronze medal in Paris. So, out of all the sort of British amateurs turning over, he's one to sort of keep an eye on, I think.
You know, I don't actually think the McKinson and Bengay fights aren't that bad. I mean, Bengay did give Sissoko a pretty tough fight a couple of years ago, and he can punch.
It for me, that fight just screams sort of a typical Mikey McKinson boring sort of 118, 110.
Well, it does because that's how all his fights go. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's not as easy as people think. I also wouldn't be surprised if he wins every round.
Fair enough. He's just so awkward, McKinson, man. Like, he's so awkward. By the way, I've just checked. Lewis Edmondson is now 4-6 favourite against Dan Aziz, so you can get plus money on Dan Aziz to win this fight. That's interesting. But yeah, should we go on to sort of boxing news? Because there's a couple of things we referenced earlier. The IBF kicking off about ordering Beterbiev to fight Michael Eifert. Now, I'll leave my opinion until last on this one, but Taj, you go. So I know you've got an opinion on that.
I'm like tired. Like I understand why the IBF do what they do, and it's like good that at least one of the sanctioning bodies do something instead of just let the fighters do whatever. But sometimes it like gets too, like how Dan said earlier, it gets too strict. We all know who the undisputed champion is. In the last couple undisputed champions, it seems like the IBF just want to just rip that belt away like immediately. Like how quick Usyk had his IBF belt ripped away. How fast Crawford had his IBF belt clipped from him. It's pretty aggravating to like finally get an undisputed champion. It's in this day, like this day and age of boxing, we don't get undisputed champions that often anymore. And then finally, when they do become undisputed in alphabetical terms, in like less than a month, they're not undisputed anymore. It's like it's pretty stupid, in my opinion.
I agree, but I think it's a multi-layered problem. Um, I think fighter activity has part to blame with it. Like, if Beterbiev was fighting twice a year instead of once a year for the past couple of years, he would have fought Michael Eifert already and knocked him out. Same with Crawford. Like, well, Spence maybe, like, that's a different situation. That's probably a bad example. But same with Usyk. Like, he's since becoming heavyweight champion. Year between Joshua fights, then a year for Dubois, a year for Fury. Like, it. If you're fighting one fight a year, like, it's not good. You know what I mean?
It's supposed to be like a certain amount of time before you have to let the number one contender fight for this belt. Like,
Yeah.
you can't just sit on number one forever. It just always feels dumb when there's an undisputed champion, and then in a couple weeks they're not undisputed anymore.
Yeah, it is annoying. It is really annoying.
I get for Eifert's case, but because he's been sat there for a while. But I also don't feel like the IBF rankings aren't that good. I don't feel like Michael Eifert should be number one for beating Jean Pascal in this decade. Really, like,
I agree, but then you go back to the point where who actually is turning it down, and these other guys are turning it down. This is the issue.
They have to go down the list. It's just disgusting.
Yeah, it's like the IBF are to blame in some circumstances, but they're also not, because they've set out their rules. Everyone knows them, and they're actually like being straight with you, saying we're going to do this, and they do it. Then the fighters are turning down eliminators and all this, and then the promoters are totally ignoring it, and it's just a mess. It's a mess. And if boxing was a bit better, like, we'd see things going in a much more streamlined way. And it's just annoying. It's really annoying. But
Well, this is the problem with 4 different belts. Because, I mean, they all have different rules and they all want to be first in line. Especially the IBF. I mean, they do it after every single time. They just order something. And that's what happens. It's hard for someone who holds 4 belts to do all these mandatories and fight good opponents all the time. I know everyone's going to get their opportunity.
that's a very good point. Can you imagine the reaction if after Beterbiev fought Michael Eifert as a title defense?
Because no one cares about that fight.
Like, it's just dreadful. It's awful.
Because then he's like, let's say he fought Michael Eifert, and then let's say the WBA order. I don't know who the WBA mandatory is, but let's say, and then he's gonna have to fight that guy. Then the WBC, like, yeah, you gotta fight this guy, and then the WO is gonna come along. Like, yeah, Bizarro, now you gotta fight this guy.
Yep. The BA and BC are sort of coming together, though, which is good, because Morel is regular champion and Benavidez is interim champion, so they're coming together. But yeah, it's really annoying. It's really annoying.
Yeah,
But
because like I know these guys obviously they want their title shot, but like when you haven't really, I'm not saying deserved it, but done enough maybe. I mean, just wait. I mean, there are better fights out there. We want the Dimitri Bivol rematch. That's a much better fight. And just wait.
yeah, it'll probably end up being Eifert against Conor Wallace for the vacant title.
Exactly. Who wants to see that? That for a world title? Like, what's the point?
And then yeah, like, it's not ideal. It's really not ideal. But it's just a game and how the game is now.
It's gonna go around. He's gonna have a title defense against probably someone not good.
It'll be a mandatory first, won't it? And the number 3 is Anthony Yard, number 4 Albert Ramirez, 5 Ali Ismailov. So they'll beat him. All those 3 names, they beat Eifert or Wallace, in my opinion.
Yeah, like they definitely beat Wallace. I mean, I think they should beat Eifert as well. At some point, common sense just has to take over.
This is boxing, man.
Yeah, but just someone should punch some common sense into their head. Like, they just don't get it. That's it. They don't get it. I don't even know why they wouldn't want Beterbiev to keep the belt. They'd get more money for the sanctioning fees anyway.
It's because of the FBI thing, isn't it? And like how they're looked upon by the American government on that because of the scandals and the corruption stuff.
Maybe they shouldn't have had that bloody bribing scandal back in the day. That's literally the only reason. That's the reason they're so strict and follow their rules, because they got caught taking bribes.
Yep.
But
now the FBI are all over them.
Yeah, they're not strict because they want to be strict. They're strict because they have to be strict.
Yeah, it's not good. It's really not good, but it is what it is. It's the game, man. And the thing that somewhat annoys me is when people act like they don't know that the IBF are going to do this stuff. Everyone knows the game. Or everyone should know the game. Everyone should know what the IBF are going to do. But that's another discussion. But yeah, on to a couple of results from midweek that are interesting. Salido smashed Chris Colbert to bits last night in a fight that I made money on because I bet Salido by KO at 4-1. But man, Chris Colbert is shot to pieces. That was bad last night. That was really bad.
I think he's done.
He's finished.
I think he's done. Because even with the going down weight, that's not going to help him.
Look, his move up to lightweight could not have gone worse.
I don't get it. They picked a big Mexican pressure fighter that can punch. Like, why are you picking that opponent?
After getting knocked out by Ryo, which is hilarious.
I mean, it's interesting as well because pro box matchmaking is usually pretty good. This wasn't very smart.
I mean, it was a good fight. Like, it was good in terms of the viewer, but like, pro box probably offered them it, and like, his team should have turned it down, not pro box. Like, this is on Colbert's management.
Yeah, especially coming off of such a brutal knockout as well.
Yeah. But yeah, he's finished. He's totally finished.
Look, if you're coming up against if you're coming off a brutal knockout, don't fight a Mexican.
Don't fight another Mexican after she just got knocked face first by one.
Yeah, because like since he lost to Garcia, I mean, he had a gift against Valenzuela. They got knocked out against Valenzuela. They just got knocked out
so much
last night.
damage in these last 4 fights. It's actually like insane. It's not like he's just had like one like blip in these fights. He got battered and dropped by Garcia. He got battered, dropped, and robbed Ryo in the first fight. He got battered, knocked face first in the rematch, and then he just got battered again.
Did you hear the interview before the fight?
No.
This is before the fight. He sounded gone. He sounded like a 2024 James Toney.
I didn't hear him talk, but I did see something's wrong with his like eye, like I don't know if it's just like
I don't know. He's shipped too much punishment already. Like it's time to.
I don't know if it's like a lazy eye that I haven't seen before, but the whole left side of his face is like not at the same like I don't know how to explain it. It's not the same as the right side of his face.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
And it seemed to be bothering him like the entire fight too. So I don't know.
I think he should retire.
If he wants to.
He probably should. But we know he's not going to because he's only 28.
Yeah, he's going to become an opponent. Like, you imagine next year. Imagine next year, Top Rank call him up, say, "Do you want to fight Abdullah Mason?" Yeah, but that's the type of fight it'll take. Probot's called him up, say, "Do you want to fight Nicholas Waters or Jojo Diaz or someone?" This is sort of the problem with if you're promoted early on in your career and you're not very good and you get somewhat of a name. There's so many outlets out there now that you can get served up to multiple people and just get knocked about. Look at Miguel Vasquez and like all these people just getting served up to people to beat. And that's what it'll be. That's what it'll be now because he had somewhat of a hype. He was an interim champion or something, and he'll just get knocked about now.
Yeah, I mean, he had a big hype. I mean, he was a very high prospect back in the day.
That's Stephen A. Smith's tweet.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I do remember.
He's the next Mayweather, and that, yeah.
The Shakur versus Colbert talk in the early part of the decade.
Yeah, the next Mayweather. Yeah, Jeff Mayweather.
That's disrespectful to Jeff, though.
But yeah, Masanori Rikishi got a knockout this morning. He's very highly rated across all the bodies. It was a very nice knockout. Doesn't really tell you anything about what he's going to do. Nice fighter. Ohashi Promotions debut. And I think he'll be getting more of a push now that he's with a bigger promoter in Japan. Matsumoto also won that card. He's a featherweight, been Japanese champion for like a year and a half, had like 4 or 5 defenses of that belt. Good performance from him. There's a couple of really good prospects on that card. Yuta Sakai in particular, exceptional prospect, moved to 2-0. Yeah. I don't think you've got any real strong opinions on that Japanese card. Either of you two, but
I do like Rikishi though. I hope he gets a title shot soon because it doesn't seem like him and his brother are too big for their weight class. It's like kind of
yeah.
So that
For those that don't know, Masanori Rikishi is Masamichi Ibuki's brother.
His younger brother.
Yeah.
But he's however many weight classes bigger than his.
He's a big super featherweight man.
He should not. He needs to have his title fight like immediate, like in the next 2-3 fights before he can't make it anymore.
Yeah, Sakai looked good. I mean, I don't understand how he's generating power from some of the angles he throws his punches from.
He's just a brilliant prospect, man. I know Hashi are properly like getting behind him.
Good. I'm not surprised.
He's only 19.
And now I hope to see Rikishi on some Inoue undercards.
So do I.
He will be. He will be.
Get him out in December, man. Like he did.
He's on the next one.
Yeah, get him out in December. That's another thing. Goodman's turned it down, or hasn't turned it down, or he's going to purse bids. Christ knows, but it's not like Goodman hasn't been turning down an Inoue fight before. So I hope he doesn't again. But
look, well, I mean, I think he's asked for way too much money, and they've said no. And he's like, okay, well, I'll just let it go to purse bid and hope no limit bid a lot of money, which is stupid.
it'd be a shame if he does turn it down, you know. Especially after like members of his team have been threatening me on Twitter, but that's another story for another day, isn't it? Not like me to get in a Twitter altercation. Definitely not like me to get in a Twitter altercation. But yeah, this afternoon, Muslim Gadja Magomedov beat Leon Half by UD to retain the Bridgeweight title. Good performance, good amateur, good fighter, but not a heavyweight, not a Bridgeweight. Get yourself back down to cruiserweight because you're not having success at heavyweight or Bridgeweight long term or whatever weight you want to call it because it's not real. Talking of things that aren't real, Albert Batkaziev defended his IBA professional title despite being a WBA interim champion. God knows. They were saying that he was meant to fight Nicholas Waters, but that didn't happen. So who knows what's happening there. Good performance though, good fighter. Hope he gets his title shot soon or is elevated. His real title shot. But that's not real, the IBA title.
So, well, I mean, yeah, Beterbiev, he did what he was meant to do against his opponent.
Yeah.
And, well, I didn't really think Azim-Davies, I didn't really think he looked that good.
He looked like an amateur.
Like
That
in
makes
the fifth
sense.
round, like he stepped up in the fifth round and looked like he was putting a slight dent in it. And I thought, okay, fair enough. This is where he's gonna stop. He didn't stop. He carried on doing what he was doing before that, and then went the distance
He's just saying first gear.
to win. To retain a belt of
Yeah.
a division that isn't real. No one cares about Bridgerweight, formerly Super Cruiserweight for the WBA.
Yeah.
Like he's big, but he's just not a heavyweight.
Yeah, he's a cruiserweight. But yeah. What a weird way to end the episode, but yeah. Like always, thanks for listening to episode 11, I think it is. Yeah, episode 11. All the links are below. Twitters, YouTubes, Discords, everything else is in below. And yeah, we'll have a review podcast for all the weekend's action coming out later this week, or later next week, early next week at some point. But yeah, thanks for listening to episode 11.
See you in episode 12.